Hey, greetings everyone. Happy Sunday morning. Well, somebody had to do it, and I'm going to. This is inspired by the vinyl tag that pretty green vinyl guy Edwin created, not Mazzy. I gave Mazzy credit for it, and I apologize to Edwin. I'm sorry. Go to Pretty Green Vinyl Guy's channel, watch the original uh, Vinyl Tag 25 video. Thank you. Next, one of the questions that was asked was Beatles or Stones? I haven't heard this question asked since I was like a kid. If you were around during the British invasion, when the Beatles hit, the Stones hit, Beatles or Stones was a big question, and you had to have an answer. It was a line drawn in the sand. You couldn't, for some reason, a lot of people had it in their heads that you had to like either or. You couldn't like both. I like both. I'm sure a ton of us like both. I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm sure the majority of people like them both, but it was a big question back then. Um, so I have been doing some thinking on how to choose Beatles or Stones. And I made some notes, my own thoughts. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but this is the way I look at it, trying to be objective. Okay, so first of all, 1964, British invasion. People go crazy. Um, the Beatles. I mean, they were heavily marketed. They were. The publicity campaign was huge in America. I think it was pretty grassroots in Britain. But in America, and then because you had they came over as the lovable mop tops, like that they were fab, they were mop tops, they were charming. You heard the word charming a lot. Witty. Uh, which one is the cutest? I like Paul. I like whatever. That was huge. Uh, Toys, all the little Beatles toys. There was tons of them, tons of them. The Stones. One sentence. Would you let your daughter date a Rolling Stone? They were the bad guys. Influences. If you look at the musical influences, you got the Beatles were heavily pop music influenced. Elvis, Buddy Holly, Motown, the Everly Brothers. I would say there's a few others, I'm sure, but they were the four main ones that contributed to what the Beatles became. The Stones seeped in the blues. They were a blues band. And Chuck Berry, who, as much as he did rock and roll, he was a blues based guy and was actually on the Chess label, which is a blues label. That means to me that the Beatles were they were more perfect for top 40 radio than the Stones were. Um, and that's, let's face it, even to today, for the history, that's what most people listen to is pop music, top 40 music, radio music. Most, I'd say 90% of listeners are not interested in deep cuts. They're not interested in jam bands. They're not interested in whatever. They're interested in what they hear on the radio and in popular music. And it's even evident when you're doing YouTube videos. If I do a video on the Beatles, I could get 1,000 views. If I did a video on a bluegrass band, I'd be struggling to get 100, 200 views. I might get 200 views just because I have enough loyal viewers that I get that many views that people just watch. But the difference is absolutely massive when you're doing the subject matter on something more popular and more mainstream than something that isn't. And I think that's another one of the reasons why the Beatles became the iconic band that they became. More people said, we want to start a band, we want to be like the Beatles. Um, the Stones, I remember the first 45 that was on AM radio in Canada. I'm not sure if it was all over. Was Not Fade Away, which is a Buddy Holly song, but it's it's not really a pop song, and it didn't do that well in the charts in Toronto anyway. It maybe made the number 20 or something. Um, what else do I want to say here? How about let's just move to before I talk about the albums. Um, the Beatles clearly had like the most success on, like I said, on the radio. The number of songs they had on the top 40 was absolutely massive. At one time, I think they had 6 songs in the top 10. It was nuts. So then let's jump forward to concerts. Beatles concerts, 20 minutes long, played with archaic sound systems. They got little Vox amplifiers on a stage playing in hockey arenas. No one could hear a thing. Um, they were. It was Beatlemania was so huge that I don't even know if they enjoyed playing the concerts. And unfortunately, they split up before concerts became big business in terms of creating a better sound system and doing bigger tours, playing longer. The Stones hung around for that. Touring band, they killed the Beatles. Killed them. No comparison. No, a lot of that was, let's talk about them breaking up, which is the reason the Beatles never got an opportunity to tour in the 70s or whatever. Beatles broke up because of money and ego. Stones never broke up. The main guys, anyway. I mean, they lost Brian Jones along the way and whatever, but Rolling Stones respected what they built to this day. Still together, Richards and Jagger. Ego did not get in the way. And let's not think that not any of these guys didn't have big egos, but they controlled theirs. What else have I got? That's about it. That's about it. Now I got to give equal time. Hold on. Okay. Albums. I think both bands had 5 iconic albums. 5 each. I'm not saying there weren't other great albums. The whole Beatles catalog is, we all grew up with it. We all love it. I'm not disparaging any of the Please Please Me or Hard Day's Night or Help, the Magical Mystery Tour, whatever. But there are 5 that are like just, I would say everybody's top 5 would pretty much include these albums. They would be Sgt. Pepper, Abbey Road, White Album, Revolver, and Rubber Soul. I say the Stones have 5 albums that are pretty much an equal. Let It Bleed, Exile on Main Street, Beggar's Banquet, Sticky Fingers, and Aftermath. 5 each. Now, what I'm going to do is rank those 10 albums, and at the end of it, I'm going to assign a points total. So if you're ranked number 1, you get 1 point. If you're ranked number 10, you get 10 points. But it's going to be like golf. When we total up the points on each album, how they're ranked, the lowest score will win the ranking. Doesn't mean you have to pick the Beatles or the Stones yet. Hold on. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, number 10 for me, I'm going to pick Aftermath by the Beatles. Sadly, I do not have this on vinyl. I need to correct that. There's 2 Stones albums here that I don't have on vinyl, and I gotta get them. It just made a mental note to myself that I should have them. Aftermath is the first Stones album that contained all original songs. Really, when they started just becoming crazy good, but it's got Mother's Little Helper on it, Lady Jane, Under My Thumb. Great album. That's the UK version. There's also a US version. Number 10. Number 9 for me. Man, I hate to put this at number 9, but there's so many great albums here. Rubber Soul, one of my favorite Beatles albums. All these 10 albums are incredible. They could all be number 1 on anybody's list. Number 9, Rubber Soul. Beatles kind of acoustic album, kind of the bridge between the Mop Tops and the more serious Beatles and the music they were starting to create. Just a great album. Rubber Soul. Number 8, I'm going with the White Album. A lot of people think this is their favorite Beatles album. This might be number 1 on a lot of people's list. Remember, this is my ranking. You could say I'm stupid, whatever. Number 8's the White Album. Number 7, Sticky Fingers. Incredible album too. One of my favorite albums. And I got the zipper, so that makes up for not having the other stuff on vinyl. Number 7. Number 6. The other one I don't have on vinyl. Let It Bleed. Great album. A lot of people's favorite Stones album. Fantastic. Number 5. Revolver. Again, like you can make the argument this is a number 1 album for a lot of people. So number 5, Revolver. Number 4, Exile on Main Street. I always say this is my favorite Stones album, but I don't know. It's tied for number 1. Let me put it that way. Exile on Main Street. Number 3, the album that it's tied with. Beggar's Banquet. Love this album. That and Exile are my go-to Stones albums. Number 2, Abbey Road. Again, a lot of people's favorite album of all time. A lot of people's favorite Beatle album. Great. Like I said, all these albums are amazing. Number 1, The GOAT. I don't care. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the greatest album ever made. It always will be. And time is not going to change that. I love it. Fantastic. Okay, so that's my ranking. Again, I'll go over it. Number 1, Sgt. Pepper. Number 2, Abbey Road. Number 3, Beggar's Banquet. Number 4, Exile. Number 5, Revolver. Number 6, Let It Bleed. Number 7, Sticky Fingers. Number 8, White Album. Number 9, Rubber Soul. Number 10, Aftermath. So if you're number 1, you get 1 point. If you're number 2, you get 2 points. Get it? So I'll add up the 5 Beatle albums and the point totals beside. Now, obviously, if you get a higher ranking, you're a better album. So I'm going to do it like golf. It's going to be, the total score is going to be the lower score wins the ranking. So when I total up the Beatles, they got 1, 2, 5, 8, and 9. Totaled up to 26 points. Rolling Stones, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 10. They get 30 points. So the Beatles won by 4 points on the ranking. Okay. Who's better? Pick one. Beatles, Stones, or Beatles? Stones or Beatles? I'll give you my decision on my next video. Let me know yours. Thanks.